usually let y'all get to tell your testimony, but God did something awesome for me today, and I just got to give him the glory. See, some of y'all didn't know that I was going through something for the last 2.5 years. The only person who knew about it was the apostle and maybe his daughter. But anyway, we prayed about it back then, that God was going to bring me up out of it. And I'll just say this and keep it short for you. 30 years ago, I wasn't always a good guy, you know, and I had an aggravated assault, violent record in the past. But because this was facing pretty much the same thing, they read the new law off to me. All this week, for the most part, I was in trial, and they read the new law off to me that said that if you were with the two-time offender, as far as aggravated assault, no matter what else is on your charges, you automatically was going to get 10 years. So I remember standing there looking at them saying, the devil is a liar. I know what God told us way back when. So all I'm looking for is when God come through. Amen. To keep it short, as they went through the trial, and I wound up having to take the stand myself because God said nobody else is going to hear you. So I said, okay. They went for the victims and let them talk, and yeah, he was this and he was that, and I'm saying okay, and God said, I'm going to give you the words to speak when you get up there. Because I didn't know what to say. I lied to you not. I stood there and I just started praying, and this morning, me and the man of God got on the phone and prayed and touched and agreed to continue what we touched and agreed on over 2 years ago. But I come to tell you today, when they got up there, they told me I wasn't going to make this thing. They said, no, I'm telling you now, with what you got, because you have an old past record, over 30 years ago, mind you, it doesn't matter what you've done in the last 30 years. It's the fact that we got you on this now. So the DA tried to make it like I was a violent person, and back then, I really was. You know, I'm a living, walking proof that God is able to change and turn your life around. And I said, well, you know what? The devil is a lie. You don't have a right to control what God is doing in my life now. You have no say-so over me because I'm a child of God now. So they kept trying to tell me each time the jury would send back, they would send back for questions pertaining to the people that were coming against me testimony. They would not allow any of my testimony to even be submitted back there. My son started crying, and I said, come here, boy. I said, let me tell you something. How long you seen me walking with God? He said, well, Dad, but I tell you, I look. Don't even feed into that. God said, don't pay attention to what you see. See, because what he did, he was in the courtroom and watched 3 or 4 guys get handcuffed and walked on out and get slapped with 20 to 25 years. This judge was not playing. And all I kept saying is, Lord, why do you always send me to the worst people there is? He said, because I want to try your faith. And when he said, all I need you to do is trust me. You and the man of God stood for it, but you see, the enemy had to come at me because God uses me for a purpose in men of God's life. So I understand, and I said, well, Lord, what do I do? He said, just stand ye still and see the salvation of the Lord. They came back, as God be my witness, they sent the paper back about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We've been waiting for almost 2 days for deliberation. They sent the paper back and said, can we convict him on just simple assault? The judge said, yeah, he'll get 10 no matter how you convict him. I said, that ain't what God said. My attorney telling me, oh, well, now look, we can make a deal. No, we not making no deals. I'm not taking no deals on something that I know for a fact sure. I might have blew my temper, I might have reacted to that thing, but God said, let me say this thing the right way. Oh, God said that we may have many afflictions upon the righteous, but he said he delivers us out of them all. He don't say when you go there and do something deliberately, you'll come out. He said he deliver you out of them all. Well, just to touch it briefly for y'all, I was robbed and I reacted to it. So, you know, my thing was, I wasn't always saved. So, you know, that my old nature, 1 minute without God, that old nature will surface. And God showed me that contrary to what the enemy was trying to do, then they came back and this is, I'm gonna cut it short here. I'm trying not to jump and shout like I did in the courtroom today. But I just want y'all to understand, as they went there, they sent another piece of paper that said, we have a verdict. As they were arguing about what they wasn't going to send back to them, they knocked on the door and said, we have a verdict. My attorney said, well, listen, give your family your stuff. I said, for what? That's not what God said. He said, I want you to understand, if you don't make this, I said, there ain't no if. I'm not going by what I say, I'm going by what God said. I said, I'm telling you what God told me over 2 years ago. He said, the battle's not mine, but his. I said, so he said, well, just calm down and let's see. Then they sent 4 big sheriffs in, and I mean 2 standing behind me and 1 at each door like, yeah, you're going to break off and run. God said, don't pay attention to those things they're walking around. Then he brought Peter to my mind. When Peter jumped off that boat and he was walking until he took his eyes off of Jesus. So I said, Lord, I believe you. I closed my eyes and began to pray. The jury came out and they said, do you have a verdict? The judge said, how do you say in the aggravated assault? They stood up and looked me in my face and said, not guilty. They said, how do you plead? How do you say for the simple assault and battery? The man that speaks, he stood up and said, not guilty. He said, well, is there anything else on the charter? He said, no, Your Honor. The DA stood up and said, well, Your Honor, will you pull the jury? The jury stood up, each and every one. They said, do you agree with what they said? He said, yeah. There's a yeah. By the 12th one, they said, yeah. By that time, I was shouting all over the floor, yo! Oh! I'm trying to tell you, I shouted so hard till the judge told my attorney, would you get him and take him outside the hallway? Have him calm down a little bit. I just want you to understand. I looked at a video that I preached up there in the gates of heaven a couple of months ago about when you're going through, how big is your God? Well, I told my wife, one thing I learned about this word, when you stand for God, everything you preach, it's got to come to pass. It's going to come to you. Believe God.